good though. It keeps everybody awake. Exactly.
All right, we're live. Really? Fell off the planet? Yeah, that was kind of awkward, because
I mean, because I had talked to him at about. So can we have extra pens too?
so if you're joining us for the web conference or here in the room, just a quick reminder that the microphones are on and the web conference is being live streamed out to YouTube. So the microphones are on and the live streaming is up and running. So if you need to, mute your microphone just to help us keep the noise down. And then also the just any background noise where you're at. And then if you need to speak, you can unmute. There's also a raise hand feature in the Zoom client, so you can use that too if you want to, or chat. We'll get started in just about 3 minutes.
Okay, that's good then.
I'll just put him on there.
Yeah, I mean, the one is moot because.
That's why I was wondering, should I?
All right.
So.
Hey, Mark.
But the one from.
Shut the click share off for just a second. I want to see something.
Last month wasn't actually.
Still having, yeah. Just give me 1 second. Make sure mine's working because this thing, it just shuts the
That
click share
popped
off
up today,
after a while. It doesn't.
Or if you want just resolution.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you after this.
Okay.
All right.
There she is. How about that?
Yeah, we're trying to see if what we can get out of.
Hi, Jennifer.
I'm trying to see if. Yeah, because we're presenting a shared screen.
Very cool. Hello, Chris
So
Cayos.
we're doing, like the agenda, there's a shared screen. I can leave them up so you can kind of see them a little bit.
That is kind of
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
I'm not sure. Let's see if it shows up in the live stream. I think it will actually, because it's,
Very cool.
yeah. I'll try and leave them on there for now. See how it goes.
Morning, Jared.
Yeah.
There
Should be.
Yeah, this corner.
Right?
Yeah, it's like angry today.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
It's probably because it knows it's gonna be like a.
Way.
Yeah, let's just do it.
So.
Oh, you've got
Yeah.
jobs up. Do you want jobs up?
No, I can switch it. I
Okay.
was loading them up just to have everything
Got
in
it
advance.
in
Yeah.
order.
Sorry about that. Just trying to keep track. I think we got everything though. Yeah, for right now, and then I'll switch when you do that. Yeah, we'll switch it back to you. That's fine. Okay, go for it.
Cayos, and me. We need one more.
Okay.
Hernandez was on there.
Plus
Okay.
it's whatever the thing from home.
Yeah. 2, 3, 4. I think we're good. Good to go. Usually Weber's good about being here on time.
Weber's on the phone.
Ah, Weber. Hey, Steve.
There he is.
Hello, hello.
Oh, yeah,
We miss your smiling face.
Well, I appreciate that.
All right, I think we can get started. Good morning, everybody, and welcome. This is the Energy and Environmental Committee. It's Friday, July 17th, 2020 at 9:00 a.m. I'll entertain, actually, roll call.
Weber,
Weber present.
Allen, Marino, Hernandez,
Here.
Caius,
Guy's present.
Sanchez,
Here.
Wolnicki,
Here. Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Caius moves.
Moved by Caius, second by Jarrett. Any comments or,
Madam Chairman,
yes?
just a note in the minutes from the last meeting on page 2, section 5 and 5A, Solarized Chicagoland solar power hours. The Solarized Chicagoland solar power hours, it lists the meetings. There's one meeting on Friday, it should say June 19th. And I believe the poster from the last meeting mentioned that it was, the second meeting was on Thursday, July 23rd.
Right, Jessica? Yeah.
We,
Yes.
of course, the June one's already done, but it might be important to note that there's still one more solar power hour coming up on July 23rd, on
Okay.
Thursday.
All right. Thanks for bringing that up, Chris. Okay. Do we want to vote on the amendment? Yeah. Okay. Do you want to make a motion to amend, Chris?
So moved.
Okay. Moved by Chris Caios, second by
Weber will
Jarrett.
second. Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Roll call.
Voice.
I'm sorry. 'cause
Do we have to do a roll call?
Yeah, we are. Thank you.
Weber,
Weber, yes.
Allen, Marino, Hernandez,
Yes.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Wolnicki,
Yes. And then I'll accept a motion to approve the minutes as amended. Moved by Jarrett. Do I have a
Well-
second? Second by Chris.
Do we already have a
Caius.
motion on, I'm sorry, Madam Chairman, point of order?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think I moved the minutes to be adopted, and then it would be with amendments. No?
just need a roll call vote on the meeting minutes as amended.
As
Accept.
amended.
Okay, roll call.
Weber,
Weber, yes.
Allen, Hernandez,
Yes.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
and Wolnicki.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Chris, for that correction. All right, we'll move on. We've got environmental. Jody?
Thank you. I have a quick presentation for you this morning on a groundwater governance group that has been put together by CMAP. It's currently in progress, but I wanted to give you an update as the work progresses. So we've talked a little bit about sustainable water supply planning through many years here at the county. We like to use the bucket scenario, that you have a bucket, but it's not necessarily you're using all parts of the bucket at every time of the year. Can you use different parts of the bucket, and what's the best way to remove the water from the bucket? So we have groundwater resources here in Kane County. We have two communities, Aurora and Elgin, that are using Fox River water. But is there a way to utilize the resources that we have so they aren't negatively impacting adjacent municipalities, and we're all working together on our best use of the water resources in that bucket? So we reference a lot the Water 2050 plan that was put together by CMAP in March of 2010. Many of the direction that we continue to follow in water resource planning come from this document, as well as this groundwater governance group. In the plan specifically, it states to consider the future water supply needs and develop plans and programs to guide those future needs. So in March of this year, CMAP put together a group of local and state leaders in water supply planning. We had one meeting downtown at the CMAP offices, and then the rest of the meetings have been on Zoom. The background included a review of state and federal water laws. And as we look at the state of Illinois, we find very quickly that there's very little governing the use of groundwater. I would go back to kind of Paul Shook's overall sustainable water plan that he had presented to the county board many years ago. And his suggestion was to follow the lead of the stormwater management planning that had been done in the state of Illinois. The reason for this is that currently it's a first come, first use basis. And so if you're there first, you can use as much groundwater as you need for your uses, as long as you're not wasting it. If you are impacting a neighbor, the determination is made on the rule of reasonable use, which is a very old rule, and it's very difficult through the court system to enforce. So we saw in 2012 a pretty significant drought in our area, and the drought really specifically in the area of Decatur and along the rivers where we have our nuclear power plants really pointed out that there is not really a guiding force as to who takes priority in a situation like that. Is it the folks in the city that need drinking water? Is it the agricultural crops down in southern Illinois that are being irrigated? Or is it the necessary low flows to maintain the power plant functionality? The state of Illinois really has no roadmap for situations such as this. And so to kind of look at the history of what we have in the state of Illinois and then compare that to other states and even other nations as to how they manage their water resources. So we used an interesting tool called Miro. And in using Miro, we developed this fairly complicated flow chart of how groundwater resources are considered both in the state and how would be the ideal model. We started with 4 different parameters, which would be the technical side of things. These would be our groundwater models that are telling us how much sustainable water supply we have for surface water, for groundwater, and how those tie into the legal aspects of what the current setup in the state of Illinois is and what we'd like to see that to be. So everyone has equal opportunity and is working together to promote that sustainable order of the use of groundwater. And then we have the institutional practices and what has been currently been in place for the state, as well as what we'd like to see, and then cross-sector pollination, how each of these different entities kind of work together to produce the overall information. So for an example, you can't make decisions on how and who is allowed to use groundwater if you don't have the technical basis for that decision being made. And what are your priorities? You have the priority of we point out a lot, low flow in streams. So the overuse of some of our groundwater resources dries up our wetlands, it dries up our stream base flows, and then you have environmental impacts. So where do our priorities lie? And then you add the layers upon that as to who within that entity receives priority in a drought type situation, as well as a permitting type situation for the expansion of a municipality or municipalities working together to develop water resources for multiple communities, as we see in southern Kane County at this point. So the current work as to where we're at today has really pointed out the inadequacies in Illinois groundwater management, based only on reasonable use. It's kind of a very old law, and we need to work together to develop a system that works for the farming community, for the municipalities, and for the state level, that would go beyond just the very basic requirements of the reasonable use laws. Our technical modeling, since Director Shook was here, has advanced quite significantly, and we have a much greater understanding of what our water resources are in both the shallow aquifer systems and the deep aquifer systems, and the challenges that we see on the use of the Fox River. And that really comes to light when you have algae blooms and our communities aren't able to use that as a water resource and have to go back to the groundwater systems. The report would include the framework based on that Miro spreadsheet, I guess I'd call it. And that would connect the legal resources with the technical resources and the institutional coordinate these efforts between communities. And so our hope is that we're likely to see this fall, the final report coming out of this study with some recommendations on how we move forward. And so I will be back to present those as soon as they are received. Thank you. Any questions?
Go ahead, Deborah.
Madam Chairman?
One moment, Chris. Deborah had her hand up.
Jody, I flounder with my technology. Can I ask Jody, does the mural thing, do you see that as bringing us to where we could have a plan to prioritize and to make sure everybody's got water supplies? Is there something built in here that would allow us to do the obvious, like to make use of gray water, to make when we build in Illinois, could we get water off the roof into the toilets or into the can we we have communities that are willing to do even odd watering, but not all. Do you see hope at the end of this tunnel?
Yes, and everything that you mentioned is on the Miro flow chart. And so I think for myself and going through the exercise and seeing how everything interconnects with each other, the very interesting item on this flow chart is this kind of master of all things water in the state of Illinois. And the question I have in my mind is, who is that master? Like, all this information is flowing through some entity, and who would that entity be in the state of Illinois? So the layout of it in the flow chart makes sense, but right now we don't really have, we have groups like water supply planning groups, like the Northwest Water Supply Planning Group. We have Illinois State Water Survey that's providing all this technical information. And so all this information is coming together at a point, and then that's going out as some sort of recommendations for gray water reuse or water conservation. But who is disseminating the information? And so there's a box up there that basically says this water supply planning master. And yeah, who is this water guru, and where are they coming from, and who are they working for? And so that part is really interesting, because you can kind of connect the pieces of what's going on today and how it would work in something like this, but you're kind of missing several of the pieces, which would be the recommendations that will come forth in this report to kind of move to the next level of how would we get from where we are today, and what capabilities does IDNR have, IEPA have, these water supply planning groups? Where's the funding for these folks coming from? And so it's starting to develop that roadmap, but there's certainly a lot of pieces to the puzzle that remain to be seen as to how that would all play out.
One of the things that's been discussed at Northwest Water Planning Alliance, Mayor Captain, is currently the chairman of that. Pete
Wallers.
is the technical head, and he's amazing because he just knows he's just lived long enough and experienced enough to know everything. Um, um, Mayor Wisner was the chairman before. So you have political people on the political side who are really invested. And then you have the technical group that couldn't be any better at King in this area. And one of the things that they came up with is we know here at the county to be careful about salting. And I think there are other places, schools maybe, but suppose everybody was careful. Suppose the Walmart shopping parking lot didn't put its pile of salt right where it's going to run into the gutters. What if you put the salt someplace else and then spread it around? One of the in-jokes is that if you spread the salt on the landscaping, probably the same people who are spreading the salt will have to replace that landscaping in the spring and could make a little extra money off of it. But maybe the people who are paying for the landscaping would just as soon that not occur. So the question is, could there be a course to certify people? When Sherman Hospital goes out to hire its landscapers, could it say, do you have certification in salting? Because we'd like to have that savings. We'd also like to not have the salt going into our water supply. So it's just, it's kind of easy to connect the dots, but there has to be will to do it. And that's on this radar also, first you start with suggestions and then you say, well, we have the certification process now. Can Sherman Hospital say we want somebody certified? So I just wanted to describe that process as something that is obvious, but isn't necessarily happening yet.
Interesting thought, Deb. I would think that maybe Ms. Hernandez could help us with that, because that sounds like it could be something coming from the state, maybe a state statute where somehow they certify these people and we're able to, in future building, use their resources. That's an interesting thought. So, yeah, thank you. Chris, you had a comment or a question?
Yeah, your flow chart, your neural chart there, that's a work in progress, is it?
That is correct.
So
That was from our last meeting, and so it is just a very large crop of how we're trying to interconnect everything and how everything relates to each other. And from that will become the final report.
Yeah. Could we get a copy? Maybe it's my old eyes or something, but that's really small print. Could we get a copy that's a clear copy of that so we can see that?
Certainly, it was more for the visual of the chaos of trying to connect all these items, but I can certainly
okay.
send you a PDF of the mural chart so you can read the labels.
That'd be great. It's just all the colors and the shapes and stuff. It's probably fascinating me, but I'd like to just be able to see some of the fine print too, if that's okay.
Certainly.
Yeah,
Thank you.
All right, anybody else have a comment or question for Jody? Oh, Jared, go ahead.
Chris asked one of my questions. Can we have a copy of the flow chart? I wanted to see it a little closer
Jared,
too.
can you
Yeah,
use your
speak in
mic?
Oh,
your
is it not
mic,
on?
yeah, so everybody can hear you.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
That's better.
I'm curious what the boxes mean, just so that when we look at the flow
Or
chart,
you
we
have to go
know.
back to using the mic.
You can't hear me? Now you can.
When you're close to
Okay.
it, yes.
The boxes are color coded based on those 4 items. So we created the boxes based on the color coding separately and then connected them together in the 4 different sectors. So that's kind of what the boxes mean. And so if you're seeing like the teal blue, those are all related. I'm just guessing here because I can't read it either. But the teal blue would be like all the technical aspects, and then the pink is all the legal, and then the mustard color is all the institutional. So the cross sector policy is all the connecting arrows between the boxes.
No, I was thinking like the dotted boxes.
I would have to look at that closer, but I will send that out in the email.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
because
'cause
there's like
I-
a big one and then like there's a rectangular one off to the side that's
Yeah,
around.
I can certainly explain it a little bit better.
Okay, we're gonna need a whole meeting on this, I think.
Hopefully it'll come out, the report will come out in words, not in mural boxes.
All right. Any more comments or questions? Okay, we'll move on. Recycling and solid waste. Jennifer, you're on.
All right. Hi, everybody. So, morning. We have a guest speaker today that is there in the room. Her name is Christina Siebert. She's a solid waste planner and project manager with Aptum Environmental. You all know the name. It's the solid waste consulting and engineering group that the county's contracting with to assist with the Kane County solid waste plan update. She's our primary contact on that project. And she, with close to 20 years of expertise in public and private sectors in the evaluation and implementation of waste management and waste reduction options. So it's been just a joy working with her, with the company's base of data, as well as her personal experience and insight. Her work on our plan includes data compilation and presentation, demographic analyses, best practice research, plan content, and general counsel, among many other things. Her areas of expertise also include feasibility studies, economic evaluations, market assessments, all in the waste industry. So I'll turn it over to Christina. She's going to give our presentation on the update of our progress with the solid waste plan update today, and then we will have time for questions that I'll also be available for. All right, Christina.
Thank you, Jennifer. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
I can't hear myself, so.
Did she come through the speakers?
Try that there. Now I can hear myself now. Okay, so I think that Jennifer has been here a couple of times as we've been working on the plan update to update you on where things stand and what our schedule is. We've been working on this since the beginning of this year. Being here today, we're going to give you a quick rundown of some of the more action-oriented recommendations that we've developed for the plan. And then next month, we're going to be back to present the draft of the plan update to you so we can get that finalized and get it out for public comment. Public comment would start in September with a public hearing back here at your October meeting, and then ask for this group to approve in November. With eventual approval at the county board in December. So we've been working through the last few months to develop the structure of the plan update. We're following much of the same structure that we've seen in the previous update, last couple of updates. We did decide to pull apart a couple of sections of the report so that it's a little more digestible, so that we can see more clearly what are the generation and background type items versus material management items, and then getting into other areas like public education and information and funding, which are important pieces for the success of your solid waste strategies in the county. So we just had the table of contents draft in here as a reference for how things are coming together. It will be a fairly lengthy and comprehensive document, but we want to make sure that it's easily digested for all of you. So on the recommendations, there are a total of 26 recommendations right now that are in the draft plan. They're broken out into 14 different planning categories. So those planning categories, we'll just go back to the table of contents. The planning categories more or less align with the materials management categories in section 4. So we have things broken out to focus separately on residential recycling or commercial recycling or organics, hard to recycle materials. So that when you flip to those recommendations, and for those that are looking for implementation, whether it's the county that's implementing programs, or if you have a private sector entity that's looking to come in and provide services in this realm, easy to find where those recommendations fit within the county's plans. So the recommendations come from the data that we've reviewed and are going to be presenting in the update. And then looking at those industry trends in both the local and regional area here, as well as more nationally. And then some public feedback that goes into developing what those needs are for the next 5 years. 17 of the recommendations are kind of status quo type items or ongoing tasks that are planned to be continued. They give that focus and direction and priority for programs. And then we came up with 9 recommendations that we're calling out in the plan as deliverables. These are really action items that are going to have more specific tasks associated with them over the planning period and driving some of the change in solid waste policy and advancing solid waste management within the county. So I wanted to go through what those 9 are because those are new. You know, to a certain degree, they're going to be things that maybe the county has always done or thought about, but haven't been called out so explicitly. First is in the waste minimization area. There's a emerging discussion around circular economy. I kind of liken this to the emergence of sustainability and sustainability planning probably 15 or 20 years ago, where it was initially a buzz and people didn't quite know what it was going to look like or how it was going to work and what it meant, and there was planning that went into it. And now we see actionable items that are going into sustainability. So circular economy is the idea that all materials we get out of that the make, take, and dispose type of a mindset, and we're instead rethinking how we are handling our materials from the point of creation, and really involves a lot more than what we can control at a level of a county. We need to get manufacturers and product designers involved. We need legislators involved. So there's growing discussion on the circular economy. So making sure that the county engages in those conversations at the regional level, at the state level, and then monitors and participates as appropriate in whatever is continuing to develop at a more national level. On residential recycling, through the hauler licensing process, there's good data that comes in on recycling and residential waste quantities. And we see that there's differences from community to community and how well different communities are recycling. Some of that is as a result of differences in their programs. Some of them offer different types of services. In some cases, there might just be a difference in how they approach the education to their residents. So there's a recommendation to do one-on-one outreach with those communities that are lower performing based on those hauler reports, see what services the county might be able to offer to drive greater diversion and programs for those communities if they're interested in those services. On the commercial recycling side, another thing that we see with the data is that we have a lot of variability in the commercial tonnage that gets reported from the hauler reports. And there's going to be an explanation in the plan for why that is. It's difficult for the waste haulers to know if they're in Kane County or DuPage County or Kendall County when they're getting along those county borders. Their routes cross over. So they make their best estimates of where their tonnage is coming from, but we see when we look at disposal data that they're not reporting everything. They're not capturing all of it. And then there's a fraction of the recycling that isn't getting handled through a licensed system where that's getting reported either. So we want to make sure that in the next planning period, we look at different ways to be able to affirm the numbers that we're getting or supplement the numbers that are being reported through the hauler data through cross-checking against facilities that manage material. That would be something new that the county hasn't historically done, but Jennifer has the relationships with those facilities and those operators to be able to have that additional outreach and communication. On organics, we have the idea to research the feasibility of incorporating food scrap collection at the county's drop-offs, continuing to expand the utilization of those facilities and provide a food waste collection process. On textiles, if the 2020 pilot for textiles drop-off is successful, we would look to incorporate additional drop-off locations throughout the county. For electronics, exploring the feasibility of opening an additional permanent recycling location that would allow the county to potentially reduce the number of one-day events that are required under the electronics law and provide greater access for residents. On non-traditional or hard to recycle materials, these are things like bikes or books or could be mattresses, batteries. What option is there to develop like a one-stop location for hard to recycle materials within the county? Again, building off of that same drop-off idea, but expanding it to something larger. On public information and education, we had talked about doing like repair fairs. There's a recommendation from Lake County in their most recent plan update that they're going to try and do a repair fair. We thought keep an eye on that and see how that works. But given how we do a lot of our business now and the constriction and the ability to have people gathered together, developing a series of videos to be able to post and show how you do basic repairs of different items, links to YouTube videos, things like that, that would be able to drive greater awareness of what we generate and how we can prevent it from becoming a waste. And then on economics and funding, looking at some additional funding sources to support delivery of services, both what we've outlined here and then the ability to establish funding to support future programs. So making sure to take advantage of grant opportunities that become available and seeking those opportunities out, as well as looking at feasibility of how there could be a supplemental funding structure from local government partners along the lines of how your HHW collection programs are run in conjunction with some of your municipal contracts. So the data that we've been working with, I'm going to take a little time now to talk a little numbers, and I'm going to go through this quickly so we don't lose everyone. But we've worked at looking at a lot of different sources of data. So on the hauler side, I talked about the hauler licensing tonnage. That gives us good information about generation in a relative sense, and even in a quantified sense. But we've supplemented that with some additional data on generation quantities. It also tells us about diversion rates. And we're looking at all sectors through that. So the residential, the commercial, and C and D structure sectors, both in incorporated and unincorporated parts of the county. And then there's the program collection data for the different programs that the county participates in for electronics and household hazardous waste and paint and document shredding and textiles and all the other hard to recycle materials that again contribute to your diversion. So when we approach planning, we need a baseline to understand how much material we're planning for, what's happening with it now, so we can make decisions about what to do in the future. The county has, as you all are, I'm sure, aware, one of the highest growth rates forecasted for any county in Illinois. It's a fast-growing area. You're surrounded by other counties, at least on a couple sides, that are also fast-growing, which is going to drive up how much material gets generated, regardless of the programs that you would run, just by virtue of that population growth. So population growth is forecasted to grow at greater than 1% per year. And when we look then at the individual sectors and that population growth has been already happening, this is again where we see in the graphs that are shown on the right side of the screen, tonnage numbers for the reported quantities of waste in this municipal waste portion, they fluctuate. And that really comes from fluctuation in the commercial sector and in the construction and demolition sector. Construction and demolition is a sector that has been becoming better reported. So that data that we're seeing now in 2018 and 2019 is much more, I think, representative of the activity that's happening, where previously there was a portion of it that wasn't being captured. But on the commercial side, we're seeing that bouncing around in those numbers. It leads to this fluctuation through municipal waste and a little bit of fluctuation in your diversion rate. But your diversion rate as a county really is kind of holding right under 40% or close to 40%. And so we would look to see these numbers continue to grow overall with that growth in population. And how can we drive that diversion up as we're also seeing growing quantities of material? When we're talking about how much waste is generated, we broke it down to a pounds per person per day or pound per capita per day of 8.21 pounds for each person. And that includes all of those different sectors. And that equated to about 800,000 tons in 2019. About half of it's from households, about half of it's from businesses and construction projects. And here again, we talk about the diversion. So about 34% in residential and commercial. The construction and demolition is higher. At 52%, we do have a good amount of opportunities for construction waste recovery at facilities either in the county or just outside of the county. So there is a good amount of that that's being diverted. Now, some of the C&D waste is still reported under commercial because it's not going to some of those separate facilities. It just gets handled like it's a commercial garbage stream. So those are, lesser recovery, but seeing that we do have about 52% of that stream that can be recovered or is being recovered, it's encouraging because we have some opportunity there to continue growing that. So we've got a projection on here also of 2050 projected disposal and recycling. This is just based on population growth alone, assuming that generation rate stays the same and that the management practices don't change. And so by 2050, we're looking at over 1 million tons per year being generated in the county and looking for some type of management. So where are those tons going? Got a map here that shows the facilities that are available in the region and that are known to be or likely to be accepting waste from Kane County. And what you see when you look at the map is Kane County doesn't have a lot of facilities. And the facilities you do have tend to be in the eastern part of the county, in fact, the far eastern part of the county, with the exception of the transfer station in Elburn. So what this means is that what gets generated in the county generally works its way to the borders of the county and out of the county to be managed at landfills or at recycling facilities. So as that tonnage in the county continues to grow, is that going to be the best approach? Is that going to be a suitable approach? Is there going to be enough capacity at those facilities? Historically, the county has taken the approach that the private sector develops facilities and that you rely on the private sector to flag that need for some additional infrastructure. So that is the recommendation, is to continue doing that. It doesn't require investment then from the county or risk on the county's part to drive the development of those facilities. But as that tonnage does grow, there is potential that there will be a need for some additional capacity to serve the county. So here we've got just the listing of the different plans that have been prepared going all the way back to the 92 plan. These are all linked back to the county's site. So if you haven't had a chance to pull any of them up, or if you're curious what they say, you can click on the link in your agenda and it will take you to those plans. And I would ask at this point if anybody has questions.
Okay, any questions or comments for Christina or for Jennifer? Oh, go ahead, Jared.
What did you say was the timeline for putting this together? You said September is when you want to be ready for public.
So we will be back here at your meeting in August to present the draft plan. Jen and I will both be here for that. And then we will take the comments that we get from this meeting, incorporate those, and have the public comment draft ready to go. Jen, is there a plan that comes back here for approval before it goes out for public comment in September?
I think if we go back to the slide that has the timeline on it, we don't have that step in there. We'll have to look at the dates to see if that all fits in. I think that really the comments that the committee might make, in addition to the comments that public may make, and I'll note that in the last planning public comment period, there were no comments except one, and that was from Christina at Afton. So we may not have a lot of public comment on it. In any case, I think those could be grouped together and put in as the amendments and then brought back to this committee for approval, like the plan as they've seen it with the amendments made in the comment period, their own and any public, and then there would be the solid plan draft at the end, or the final plan for them to approve, if that's acceptable to everybody.
So what that would mean then is that the final post-public comment and incorporation of the committee's comments, that draft would come back in November then with a request for approval.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Christina? I do have a quick question. I think growth is very strong in Kane County now. I think it's increasing a lot, and I see a lot of construction in South Elgin and some in St. Charles. And so when they're building homes or even office buildings or whatever it may be, or And they have a dumpster for like they put the drywall in, they cut it the way they need to, and the vinyl siding and all those things that go into home building. So do they have a recycling dumpster as well as a regular dumpster? Because that's something I never see.
It depends on who is providing those containers, how much space there is. A lot of times they don't have a separate dumpster. They take it back to one of the construction and demolition recycling facilities and sort everything out. If it's a more recoverable stream, they will likely take it to those facilities. Tends to be just maybe a slight bit cheaper than taking it to a regular transfer station and handling it as waste. But those facilities have to meet certain requirements under their permitting from the state. They have to recover 75% of what they receive. So they are a little selective. In an ideal world, yeah, there would be a couple of different containers out there. In fact, there could be even multiple containers for each different type of material that's generated off the site so that you don't need to have that infrastructure to process it. But reality is a lot of the projects will just use a single box. That way, there's no confusion about which one is for waste, which one is for recyclables or recoverables, and they let those processing facilities pull it out.
But that's totally elective if they want to take it to a recycling center. Otherwise, they'll just have a dumpster picked up and take it to a landfill.
That's true.
Correct? Yeah.
That's true. I mean, they're the companies that Lakeshore Recycling Services has their own C&D processing facility in West Chicago. They provide a lot of those containers. You'll see LRS boxes or K-Hoving boxes. They're same company now that are out at those sites. There's others. MBL is another one, Economy Disposal, that provides those boxes. So it depends on the company that the builders are working with and whether there's a commitment to that as well. So some of those builders are also, doing their own sustainability implementation and doing more diversion. So they have to be intentional about that though. But there's materials that are provided through the building permit process in Kane County to encourage the diversion of building material, and we're recommending that would continue. The more aggressive approach would be to have a countywide ordinance that would require some level of diversion. That's something to think about potentially. But there is, City of Chicago has implemented it, but they have a lot more facilities that are available to them. So the infrastructure has to be there to support that type of a requirement.
It's an interesting idea. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions for Christina or comments?
Madam Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Yes, I get on that one, the recycling is sort of, which comes first, the chicken or the egg on the construction and demolition diversion? But there's so much that it then becomes profitable, and we're so widespread in the county that it makes it very difficult with no sources to take it to? That was just an observation. I have a question. Are we reaching out to any sustainability groups? Are we making sure that we're contacting, and I'm not sure, are there sustainability groups in the county we should be contacting to make sure that we get input from some of the, like the egg group or the any of the other sustainability groups, the Fox Valley?
Certainly.
For input on this?
I have a email group called Green Gang, and it's all of the environmental groups that I have contacts with. And I definitely, when we send this out for public comment, they will be receiving all of that. All the municipalities, all of the haulers will also be receiving that notice and call for input.
We're kind of losing you a little bit, Jennifer. Maybe speak up just a little.
Sure. I said that yes. I will be sending a notification on the public comment period with the draft to all of the green groups, all of the sustainability groups, all of the municipal managers, and the haulers as well.
Thank you.
Great.
Anything else? Yep, go ahead, Chris.
No, that was all. Just wanted to make sure that we got, because they tend to be pretty vocal, but it doesn't seem like they always get into the stream until afterwards. And it's nice to hear from them. It'd be good to make sure that, and Jennifer is obviously on top of it, to make sure that we contact them to get their input as we go along.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Jessica.
Thank you.
go ahead.
Yes, I would just like to comment while Christina's here that along with collecting the data for this plan, she's also incorporated some of the lead data that we need for our lead for communities certification that we've been working towards and has helped provided some data for that. So just thank you to Christina for working with us to get us the additional data to make sure that our certification requirements are going to be met.
Okay, thanks, Jessica.
Mhm.
All right, anything else? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for attending.
Christina.
All right, anything, Jennifer, on the recycling events update?
Yes, I just wanted to briefly mention, and I know we're running short on time, so I won't cut into Jessica's time much at all. I just wanted to mention that the July 11th event that we just had, we did have to close that early. So if you hear anything about that, the reason was we closed at 11 o'clock because the Office of Emergency Management identified 2 back-to-back storm systems coming at us, lightning included. And we're standing in a parking lot full of giant metal poles out there. So we monitored the situation and called it at that point and said we have to close the event at 11. We had already served 480 cars and they turned away about 60 in that last hour before we left afternoon. Just FYI, it was just for the safety of our workers that happened. We do have a severe weather plan in place and that got activated. And everything went very smoothly. So if you had any of the 60 people might talk to you and in their disappointment, just explain that it was safety first. And we'll be back August 8th, will be our next event. There will still be no document shredding until further notice. We're still looking at how we can make that happen, but there are just a lot of barriers to providing that service, namely that the volume of cars that would come would be so huge it would be difficult to manage. Also because I have to have a lot of workers working very fast and close together to be able to unload the cars as fast as we need to get them in and out of there, you know, in the 4-hour event and serve 1,000 cars. So it's just very, very logistically difficult to figure out. So for now, the statement is no document shredding until further notice. So the August event, we will be collecting electronics, clothes, and books, as well as if people have already shredded their documents, we will take those with the book recycling and get the paper recycled. That's all. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. All right, we'll move on. Sustainability, Jessica.
All right, thank you, everyone. Move that back. I sound kind of loud to myself. So I just have a grouping of sustainability updates and announcements. I just kind of grouped them in one presentation because there's a lot of one slides this time around. So to start off, we have an upcoming Fox Valley Sustainability Network Forum that will be in webinar format again. It will be on a local, resilient, and equitable food supply this time, a forum kind of exploring our local food sources and programs, but also the opportunities and challenges for our food supply system from COVID-19. So we are fortunate to have our own Kane County speaker, Janice Hill, starting off that forum, explaining our local county programs and trends we're seeing. And then we will also follow that with a local producers panel. We'll have a speaker from Green Earth Harvest with the Conservation Foundation, CSA, Fishy Green Aquaponics, and Mighty Greens Farm, who is a farmer at a seller at the Batavia Farmers Market, and they also have a CSA program. So we're very excited to hear from them about what they're doing for our local community's food supply, but also the impacts they've seen recently. That will be on Thursday, August 6th from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. And if you'd like to register or find out more information, you can go to the Fox Valley Sustainability Network website or just email me. Next, I just have a placeholder for our green building policy, still working on that, and nothing really new to report here, but wanted to make sure as requested that we've just got a place for it each meeting and we're continuing to talk about it as necessary. So just reassurance that we are still working to combine and explore regional policies, and really now working to find the most effective way to present those to make sure that in the future this policy will be able to be upheld regardless of the project being worked on. So I'm hoping to have the draft policy to you in September. I'd love to even have that in October or August, I'm sorry, but just want to make sure that I have got a realistic timeline there. And so in the next coming months, I hope to be able to provide you a draft policy there. And then finally, back to the solar power hours that were mentioned at the start of this committee meeting. We do have an upcoming solar power hour webinar on Thursday, July 23rd. That's next Thursday. This will be at 6 p.m. So for those that weren't able to attend the daytime solar power hour last month, we've got an evening solar power hour. And then we are also very excited that we are now offering a webinar in Spanish as well. This was really Sarah Edwards from Cook County and myself were really adamant about being able to offer this. And thankfully, MREA and CUB were able to work with us and get this opportunity available. So that will be on Tuesday, August 11th from 1 to 2. For both of those, you can either visit the growsolar.org/Chicagoland website to register and find out more information, or you can email myself. There's also other solar power hour webinars available at that website if you would like to visit a surrounding communities webinar if you're not able to visit ours. It's the same program virtually, so you'll still be able to get the information. And again, just these solar power hours kind of teach the basics of solar and introduce the Solarize Chicagoland program. Usually both the CUB representative and the solar installer is present on those webinars. So a good resource, good starting point. And the goal of these is really just to get the education out there about solar and your opportunities. And then we also have the Solarize program available, but really our goal is to just educate about solar. So anybody who's interested in solar, please feel free to direct them here as a first step and hear their options and where they can go about finding the information they need. So those are my first 3 announcements in this update section. Happy to answer any questions on those.
Any questions for Jessica? Comments? Okay.
Great, thank you. So next we have an exciting new project that's going to be taking place this weekend. I'm sorry for the short notice. This was actually dependent on phase 4, so we weren't actually able to plan it until the start of July. But along with the Kane County Farm Bureau and the Kane County Farm Bureau Foundation, we are working to, our division and the Farm Bureau are working to install a rain garden, pollinator garden at the Farm Bureau's office right there on Randall Road. So this is really following the new stormwater ordinance. This project will be able to demonstrate an approved best management practice in lieu of stormwater detention for farmers to use when development occurs on farms. And we're happy to have this demonstration project right there at the Farm Bureau, where it will both be accessible to the farmers visiting the office, but also it's right along Randall Road, so it's very visible. So we'll have our beautiful flowers there that'll help the rain garden, hopefully draw some aesthetically pleasing attention, and then also provide some great stormwater benefits. It's not just a demonstration project, but it's also very functional. It captures almost all the rainwater coming off of that Farm Bureau parking lot, and we'll be able to help absorb that back into the ground and filter that before it gets into the ditch right along Randall Road that would go into the storm sewer system. So we're very excited about this project. The Farm Bureau provided the rain garden excavation this past week, and Rob Linky with our department helped with the design and also overseeing that excavation. And then from our native planting sustainability budget, I was able to provide the native plants that will be put in this weekend. So it's a nice collaboration project. Let's see what else I have to say about this. So the planting will be this weekend, July 18th and 19th. That's going to be in conjunction with the Farm Bureau's 2020 Vintage Truck Raffle on Saturday, and then the King County Farm Bureau Foundation scholarship announcements that will be taking place on Sunday. So that's really why they wanted to get this in now. This is probably the only outdoor public event they will have this year, and they really wanted the community to be a part of being able to put these plants in the ground. So while people are there for those events, they will be able to safely put in the plants in the outdoor area, and you know, they've got the safety protocols in place for that. And this was really our only opportunity. Obviously, July is not the best time to plant, but the Farm Bureau is committed to being able to water this just so that way the community could be a part of actually putting those plants in place. They really wanted that to be a part of this. So feel free to come out. We've got the times there. It will be on the Farm Bureau property on Randall Road. You can visit the Farm Bureau's website or call their office if you have would like any more information or have questions about it. But overall, hope you're able to come out there and put a few plants in the ground. Please bring your sunscreen, dress for the weather. It'll be very hot. And bring any gardening tools you would like. And then you'll have your own tools too, so that'll help without sharing tools if possible. If you come out on Saturday or Sunday, you will get a free t-shirt, a free Farm Bureau t-shirt, and then lunch will also be provided to the crew on Saturday. So should be a nice all-day event both days. And we're just really excited that this project is able to still be put in place. We've been talking about it for a little while, and we're really excited that it'll be completed. Any questions on that?
Go ahead, Deborah.
I have this question. I'm not good at spatial things. Can you tell me about how large this garden will end up being?
Yes. So from our draft outline and design, it's going to be about 45 feet by 18 feet. From my understanding, when they did the excavation this week, they actually dug it a little bit bigger than that to have some room to put in some spring plants that would come up really early in the spring as well and beautify the space. But so it's going to be pretty large. I really could have put, rather than just the snapshot of the garden, the actual location up there so you could see it. But if you're able to stop out this weekend or anytime in the future, now it'll be there to visit. But it'll be going perpendicular to Randall Road, right in their yard on it would be the northeast corner of the parking lot there. And so when they have their Touch a Tractor events, it'll be in that same area, that same yard area off to the side. So that way everybody will be able to see it for those events. That was kind of part of the idea too, that every year when they have people out there, the rain garden will be right there where the big events that the Farm Bureau has take place.
Sure. A follow-up? The whole joy of perennials is that they expand themselves. Once you pay to put in the initial plantings, they multiply your efforts on their own. But do you have a feeling for how much this particular space is going to cost to do the initial planting?
Yes, so we were able to work with Midwest Ground Covers and get a very low rate for the plants. So for this whole 45 by 18-foot section, we have about $800 worth of plants put in there, which is very reasonable. You'd usually about $1,000 for a large rain garden you might expect. So we've got a lot of small plugs being put in there too, so that way The community has a lot of small plants that they can put in and help add to, but then we've got some larger substantial plants as well to make sure it looks really pretty right off the bat.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Jessica. We'll just move on.
Great. Karen is next, I'm sorry.
Okay. Karen, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, good morning.
Good morning.
Sorry,
Okay, you're
that was
on.
me.
Let's see, I guess this is not my slide. Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Early on during the stay-at-home order, Mark Van Kerkhoff asked me to coordinate with other staff in the Development Department, KDOT, and the Forest Preserve to develop a series of articles educating the public about the importance of nature to our physical and mental health, focusing on the fabulous Fox Water Trail and the land-based trails while visiting cultural and historical sites and patronizing local businesses. The result is a series of 5 articles that are currently appearing in Kane County Connects, as well as the FREP website and the Illinois Paddling Council newsletter. The intent of the first article is to explain the value of enjoying the outdoors during the COVID-19 pandemic, guidelines for recreating responsibly, and encouragement to visit local businesses as we safely reopen. Next slide, please. The second article gives an overview of the opportunities to recreate on the Fox River by paddling and the land-based trails that offer hiking and biking. All of this is available because of the decades of support from residents and decision makers in Kane County. Next slide, please. The last 3 articles get down to the nitty-gritty and give detailed examples of itineraries one can take either paddling, biking, or hiking. The third article describes trips in northern Kane County from Carpentersville to Elgin, including the Fox River Shores Forest Preserve, Auto Engineering's beautifully restored brick buildings, and food opportunities in the Dundees. Next slide, please. The fourth article takes the reader on sample itineraries from South Elgin to St. Charles, including visits to the natural and historical sites in the John Doerr Forest Preserve and eateries in St. Charles. Next slide, please. Finally, we visit southern Kane County from North Aurora to Montgomery, highlighting the historic Roundhouse, now the Two Brothers Brewing, River Edge Park, and Gray's Mill in Montgomery. Each article provides the resources to enjoy the trips detailed, as well as encouraging the use of these resources to create your own trips. Hopefully, this series will entice recreators to enjoy the natural and historic resources in Kane County, as well as benefiting the local economy. Any questions?
All right. Thank you, Karen. Any questions or comments for Karen?
Should
Deborah?
we offer Karen congratulations on 20 years?
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations. Yep.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks. I'm fortunate
Madam
to.
Chairman? Oh,
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Chris.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just was going to mention that Linda and I got on our inflatable kayak a couple weekends ago and did a trip up and down a little bit of the Fox over here in the northern part of the county, and it was great. So
Good.
this is great work. You're doing a great job.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm fortunate to have been able to work on such wonderful, fun projects in the 20 years that I've been at Kane County. So thank you.
All right. Deborah.
Can I ask, can I ask Chris a question? Chris, did you get to where the Brunner farm is? I've just always wondered if that looked as nifty from the river as I suspect it does. And I just wondered if you got that far.
Actually, we were right there at Fox River Shores and the Bruner. We put in right at Fox River Shores and went up the river toward Elgin and then back down a little bit toward Carpentersville. So yeah, we were right there. That part of the river will be changing as we remove the dam there, but it certainly is it was a real fun trip for us, just up and down a little bit. And there were a number of kayaking groups that came down, younger individuals. They were having a really fun time floating the river.
Great, thanks for reporting.
That is a beautiful stretch of the river.
I think there's a big
Yeah, it's
bridge
great,
over there.
great for kayaking, but of course, it's not as healthy as the other part that's actually free flowing, but it's very calm for us older folks. It's like the kiddie pool, sort of.
All right, thank you, Chris. Any other comments or questions? Oh, okay. We have no new business. Public comment? No public comment. I'll entertain a motion to place the reports on file. Moved by Deborah, second by Jared. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry, roll call. Yep, used to that, to do roll call.
Allen,
Weber, yes.
Weber,
Weber,
Yes.
Allen,
Ferrero, yes.
Hernandez,
Yes.
Caius, Sanchez,
Yes.
Wolnicki.
Yes. All right, no need for executive session, and I'll take a motion to adjourn. Moved by Jarrett, second by Deborah. Roll call.
Voice vote.
Weber,
Weber, yes.
Allen,
Aye.
Hernandez,
Yes.
Caius, Sanchez,
No.
Wolnicki.
Yes. You just want to stay, don't you?
Ferrero, yes.
Pass or fail.
Ferrero,
They
yes.
can't
Oh,
hear
sorry,
me.
I think I was on mute. Caius, yes.
Sorry.
Thank you, Chris. Thank
Caius
you.
abstains.
Did you hear me, Barb?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep, we heard you. Thank you.
Garrett's just having too much fun.
We're
He
adjourned.
doesn't want to go.
Thank you, everybody.
Having fun in the fridge here.
For those of you
That
that
was
are
a-
on, if you're on for the Jobs Committee, we're just going to stay on this conference call. There's no reason to leave and come back. So just a reminder to mute your microphone if you're not speaking. And we'll get started in just a couple minutes while we switch chairs.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you, Roger.
Thank you, it
Roger
was
that.
fun.
I go outside, I don't even turn on the AC in my car. Just feel the heat.
I gotta run my next duty. Roger, thank
Yep.
you so much.
You're very welcome.
Yep. This is
Good, how you doing? The both or? Good enough.
All right, everybody that is joining us from the web conference, we have the committee chair, Dr. Iqbal. We're ready to get started. I think.
Morning. The meeting of job committee comes to order. Today is Friday, July 17th. The first item is approval of the minutes. Okay, yeah, before we go to the approval of minutes, let's have the roll call. I don't see anybody here, so I hope you are there over the phone. Please call the rolls.
Barino, Barrero, Molina,
Molina present.
Shefflo,
Buffalo present.
Thomas,
Thomas present.
Wegman, Iqbal,
All here.
Weber,
Ferrero here.
Weber present.
Looks like we have full attendance. Okay, thank you. So the first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. This is a meeting of June 12th, 2020. I entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Weber will move it.
Weber moves.
Molina will second.
Molina seconds.
Barino,
Mr. Chair, I have a correction.
Oh, can you? Yes,
Can-
any comments, any discussion?
This is Ms. Thomas. I have a minor correction on the second page under 5B. There's a reference to phrase 4, just a minor Scribner's error. It should say phase 4.
Yeah, I'm told it's a typo and it would be corrected.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Any other comments, discussion? So clerk, please call the roll.
Barrero, Molina,
Molina, yes.
Shefflo,
Sheffler, yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Wegman, Weber,
Weber, yes.
Igbal,
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you.
Ferrero, yes.
Thank you, Ms. Ferrero. The next item is OCR, Workforce Development Division. Is Maria on the phone? Anyone on the phone?
I am. This is Maria. Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you very much. Monday, we will be submitting our final expenses for the program year. So the report that you have in front of you is for the May figures. There's always a lag because of the timing of how the Jobs Committee meeting runs in regards to when we have to submit expenses. But if you, we are winding down to the very end. We are still recording expenses to June that should be recorded as such. And working, the team seemed to have worked tirelessly amidst the pandemic to serve customers. They were serving them remotely. They got onto with the Zoom and they were having Zoom conference calls so that services stopped initially, but everything's back up and running. It's not completely sure if we will hit our benchmarks because of COVID-19. But again, they worked really hard. We have our trade grant. That is the grant that's awarded to us on an as-need basis based on when there's layoffs. So we recently got an increase in our allocation, and that grant ends September 30th of 2020. We have about $160,000 left through the end of May that we have to spend, and that will cover any summer tuition and the upcoming fall as well. We have the Rapid Response and Layoffs Grant, and that's the grant that's been awarded to us for the time that our case managers spend assisting our trade participants. That's all the salary and fringe relief that comes for that. Our incentive grant ended. It ends June 30th. We have fully expended that. We get that grant. Those funds are awarded to us when we meet the benchmarks of the WIOA grant. So we were awarded these funds as a result of meeting our benchmarks for program year 2017. And then lastly, there's a new report in your packet. That's a WIOA statewide rapid response. This is a new grant that was given to us by the state of Illinois as like a emergency type because of the pandemic. We were awarded $26,000 that's going to help specific companies that had to incur expenses to maintain compliance as a result of COVID-19. My understanding is that companies had to submit an application and then the state approved whether or not they would be allowed for expenses. The expenses have been incurred. These companies will bill us and then they'll get reimbursed for it. Any questions?
Just one question, Maria. If another company wants to apply for the similar grant, is there an avenue that they can pursue? Is this information publicly available somewhere on our website or somewhere?
I'm not sure because I think this was directed from DCEO. I would look into it and I could let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Any comments on the OCR report? Hearing none, let's move on to I want to thank Maria, and let's move on to item number 4, comments by co-chair. Mr. Weber, are you online?
I am online.
Any comments?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All I have to say is that the jobless rate is still high. I don't know if it's going down. I think nationwide it went up, but Illinois it may have gone a little bit down. But I also read that IDES website is still not functioning very well. Any other comments?
Or Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah, Doug Shefflow. It seems like your mic, you're either not, or the mic isn't on or something, because everyone else's voices are a lot louder. I don't know if.
Okay. This is the second mic I'm trying, so.
Great, thanks.
Okay, is it better?
I think so.
No, not better.
Say
Better?
something, I guess.
Should I use both or one? Just this one?
It sounds clear to me.
Working better?
That looks better to me.
Okay, I'll be very close to it. Okay. Okay, item number 5, job committee priorities. We have our Chris Dost to give us a report, an update.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I had the pleasure, along with another development staff, Karen Miller, to talk to the Fox Valley Sustainability Network last Wednesday, just giving a regional economic development update. So I wanted to share some of that information along with some new and updated information with the Jobs Committee today. First thing I want to talk about is Phase 5. There is no plans for Phase 5, but we always keep those fingers crossed. The quote I share with everyone is the vaccine or highly effective treatment widely available, or the elimination of any new cases over a sustained period. What's interesting is Governor Pritzker just, I think 2 days ago, sent out another document stating what might happen if our cases go back up and how we might slide back into a Phase 3 after 3 tiers. I'll share more information with that after I have a better analysis of it, but we're just keeping an eye on our COVID numbers because a shift back to Phase 3 from Phase 4 would be a very hard impact on our businesses. But I'm glad Mo brought it up because I do have our unemployment numbers for 2020. In March, I was bragging about how we're almost a full percentage point below the national average. But right now, as of April, we were about 2% above the national average. Again, in May, I don't have the June numbers for the state and the county, but USA is down to 11.1%. So, just by keeping it at trends, we could expect to see something around the 13%. I haven't had any data to indicate otherwise in either direction, but that's just something to keep an eye on. We'll probably have those by the end of the month. So if it gets updated, I'd love to share that with the Jobs Committee members. But why is our unemployment currently higher than the national average? Well, our top 3 employment sectors are manufacturing, retail, and healthcare and medical services. And manufacturing and retail were the 2 initially hit the hardest when the lockdown went into effect at the end of March. The other challenge is just because other states in our state have had different timings between when they've reopened, what businesses they've reopened. So until there's a unifying platform of phases, we are just going to see wildly different unemployment numbers based upon work type and region. I did send to all the county board members. I didn't want to go too much into it, but the Chicago Fed survey of business conditions on the impact of COVID-19 on manufacturers. This survey was taken at the end of May to early June by the Chicago Fed. The outcomes were kind of what we expected, that there was a decline in revenue across the board. manufacturers had to make changes to their operations based upon COVID-19 and reduced capacity and increased costs. This finding was a little interested. Most respondents had some but not strong concerns about the financial health of their company. I can tell you about the companies that I've worked with. I'd say more than some. I would say, if not half, most. It's been a concern for everybody. The other one, they had a wide range of expectations, but the interesting thing is they thought that 75% of the manufacturers surveyed expected that it would be the end of 2021 by when we fully open. I encourage all the committee members to take a look at this data. There's about 12 questions. It was 232 respondents across Michigan and Illinois. So it's kind of a small snapshot, but given how intensely we've had to work with our manufacturers to try and assist them in any way possible, getting data has been a challenge. I know we'll see a lot more in the coming months. That'll be like backlog data about what happened during the pandemic, and I'm keeping an eye out for it, that I can share that as soon as it's released. I did want to talk today about our local program partnerships. I really wanted to highlight the work of our small business development centers. We've got 3 that serve King County: Waubonsee Community College, the College of DuPage, and our Elgin Community College, which actually opened up right after the lockdown started. Our 2 that I've worked the closest with during this, Elgin and Waubonsee, are both staffed primarily by 1 person. But they handed me some data this week just to give an idea of what their impact has been. At ECC, they've helped 78 businesses directly since April. About 15% of those were from unincorporated King County, and 32% of those, 32, which was 40% of that, was for minority-owned businesses. Waubonsee's data is a little different. They've helped 340 clients since January. About half of those were for King County businesses, and the majority of them were from Aurora, Batavia, Geneva, and St. Charles. They have done some of the most amazing work of any partners that we've had since the pandemic has started. They've always done great work before that, but I have to keep mentioning that these are 1 or 2 person teams with some assistants who have felt, I think Waubonsee told me since March has had over 1,200 calls to her. And they have a system that they had prior to the pandemic of getting businesses to register and become part of the SBDC ecosystem, which has been great in getting those people locked in. But man, the amount of calls that they were getting just to point people in the right direction, answer questions about the PPP. They've been referring people to me. I've been referring people back to them, and just trying to find the resources to kind of spread the love around. I just want to make sure that we highlight the work that they're doing. In terms of the programs and partnerships that we're still working on, we had one 2 months ago with a manufacturing improvement voucher with IMEC. So we're still promoting that. While it still exists and is being promoted, our export grant with matching funds through CRGC, we have not had any movement on that in the last couple months. I haven't had any applications or any notifications from company coming my way. We are heavily promoting the Keep Pace program, which is our energy efficiency program for commercial buildings in Kane County. We are getting interested in that, interest and questions about that. The one thing I do like to note is this year, I was told, I think 7 or 8 other counties are in the process of or starting their own PACE program. So that's good news. We had a competitive edge this last year to be one of the first county in the state to have it ready, and our first project. So we're going to continue to promote that, but that's just good news to share all around. The COVID programs have been interesting for me in terms of the way we've had to respond to them. They usually are announced rather quickly. They have very short terms, very limited funds. They tend to close either when their funds are exhausted or at maybe a 2-week date. The 2 I wanted to just talk briefly about today was the business interruption grant for those businesses that were completely closed or mostly closed during the initial phase of the lockdown. So your beauty salons, theaters, places that are still under duress from the pandemic. That first round closed on July 7th. If another round opens up, which there's always the potential for, we will continue to promote that. The other one was on July 10th, closed the Build Distressed Communities Program, and that was just $25 million allocated to companies that were impacted by the civil unrest during the protest demonstrations and other things that happened after May 25th. You heard about it in the last meeting, but I always want to highlight it one more time. We are on the last of our series for the Fabulous Fox Water Trail. It's been a conjunction between King County Development, KDOT, the Forest Preserve, and a lot of partners from Aurora just getting us information and pictures. We've highlighted the north, the south, or the north, the central, and the last one will be the south. So make sure you check it out on King County Connects. But with that, that is my update, so I'll take anyone's questions.
Thank you, Chris. Regarding the two programs you mentioned, one is the big DIG, and the other one is the civil unrest. These are both for the municipalities, I believe, or businesses, are they?
Yes, these were directly for businesses.
Oh, businesses, not
Yes.
for municipalities. Okay. How do they apply for this one?
Well, no, now that they're closed, the applications are closed, but typically I've been telling everyone to now bookmark our DCEO's COVID-19 resources page on their website. That is the front line for all the information that comes out. That's where they make their initial announcements. So if they're looking at it frequently, they're able to catch these announcements because they'll announce a program in advance, say, here's the date, they put on some webinars to inform both, officials and public about what the program can serve, and then when all the dates are. So just keeping an eye on DCO's webpage is a good idea.
Okay. So this is the county webpage, or is another webpage that you're referring to?
The Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunities website.
If someone comes to our webpage, would they get a link to be connected to the Illinois Department of Commerce webpage?
No, we don't have a landing page for that resource, but it's something I can add with. Our website does not get that kind of traffic to direct it. Most of the information that we share out through King County Connects, but I can put something on our website.
Okay, that would be good, I think.
Sure.
Thank you. The second item, 5B, is the CAG discussion. At the last meeting, Ms. Barrero said we should discuss it here. I don't know if it is necessary anymore. Ms. Barrero, are you there? Would you like to discuss anything? Hearing none, we can move on to the new business, item number 6.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Oh, okay, all right. Sorry.
What are
Good.
you referring to, Commissioner?
Yeah, at the last meeting, you said you wanted to discuss about the CARE Act money and so forth. So we didn't forget about it, even though we have a CAC committee now, and everything is being discussed over there. But if you still want to discuss anything here, we put the item in.
Oh, well, I thank you very much, but I believe that committee now has reorganized or organized, and I believe that they are taking care of those issues. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So no need for any discussion. New business, any new business? Hearing none, let's move on to public comments. Anyone on the phone who would like to discuss? Make public comments? Hearing none. Let's move on to the reports. I entertain a motion that reports be placed on file.
So moved by Thomas.
Move.
Weber will second.
Weber seconds. Any comment? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Ferrero,
Yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Wegman,
Yes.
Igbo,
Yes.
Weber,
Weber, yes.
Shefflo, yes.
Shefflo,
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Oh, was that the roll call or was it the? Okay, so it carried. Thank you. The next item is the executive session. We don't need one, so I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to
Weber
adjourn.
moves.
Wakeman seconds.
All in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
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 Thank you, ayes have it. We are adjourned.
Thank you, Mo.